incrementality, I
Yeah.
think is a good example. So we can talk generally about, hey, my metrics, standardization, but incrementality is so important. So for every dollar we spend, is that driving incremental revenue for the business? Maybe we pick on that one for a minute and say can we standardize this? How would that look? What are the pros and cons to doing that? I'm just curious from having the retailer's perspective, what are your thoughts on can we get there? How do we get there?
Yeah, well, super important, right? And it's kind of a fundamental question about retail media networks. It sits so low in the purchase funnel that brands are, I think, rightly suspicious of, are you just grabbing sales that are being generated by marketing being done elsewhere that has nothing to do with retail media networks, and it's just kind of working its way through the purchase funnel naturally, and you're taking credit for it because landing on PDPs and product pages that just happen to have banner ads or something, or they're searching for sponsored results and get served those ads. This is something that we've been talking about in the retail media network industry since 2017, and doing experiments with what's the best approach. I don't think there's any question that there needs to be an iROAS metric, right? A synthesized incremental return on investment metric. The approaches, there's a lot of different options, each with their different pros and cons, right? You can do a true holdout, or what a lot of retail media networks are doing now is looking at synthetic controls, which is essentially looking at a lot of demographic attributes or econometric attributes that retailers have a plethora of, and scoring those and then weighting, okay, who did this campaign just serve to, and can we go find a lookalike group that didn't see these ads, and what was their buying habits, and then you kind of compare the two and come up with a really scalable incremental methodology. But it's not without its faults, right?
I mean, such a leap of faith.
It's a huge leap of faith, and it doesn't really solve the problem that a lot of brands have with retail media networks, which is you're grading your own homework, and this is just another sort of black box
form of
that you're trusting the retail media network to do the math right and accurately represent incremental sales to you, when inherently they have sort of reasons not to.
So they're picking the synthetic control group after the fact. And they're incentivized by showing the greater the lift, probably the more advertising dollars are coming their way. And so it's in that moment in the middle that we're trusting that they are building the same synthetic control that our data science team would, or our clients team would. And that's the hard part with it being a black box of, are we ready to make that leap of faith?
I think it's difficult too when, and putting myself in your shoes, knowing that you're buying across so many retail media networks and representing your clients that not even every retail media network even offers an incrementality metric, or you have to spend to a certain level to even have that be afforded to you within your reporting. And so that's another consideration set when I'm thinking about how you're managing all of the reports and how incrementality is weaved through that.
It's a challenge that you're looking at within a single retailer, understanding the metrics they're providing and how you're using to make decisions on that one. And then, again, without the standardization, you have to create a different process for each retailer you're working with. And so you can't, so for some of our clients, when we get the incrementality lift reports, we look at it within the context of that retailer and how it did relative to other campaigns that we've run. And so for us, it's typically not the main KPI. It's interesting and you have to pay attention to it, but we're not yet using it for the main business decisions. And we're not trying to compare this retailer against that retailer and saying we had more lift here, so put more dollars here, because of the difference in the methodology and the lack of clarity.
It's difficult even on the retailer side to be transparent about that, right? There's a lot of data science that goes into it, and how do you quickly synthesize all the thinking that goes on there and surface that, and how do you compare that to another retailer? When everyone just kind of sees iROAS at the top of the report.
I'm really pumped about EMR, so enterprise marketing return, and we've solved that for clients, I feel outside the retail media space, and now this is kind of the next frontier. And I think as we talk about some of the metric clarity we've been going on, this idea of using a single metric that's really thinking about the full enterprise. So it's capturing the online sales, offline sales, the margin, the incrementality, the future customer value, right? All of those components. And we're fortunate to work with some great partners and clients of bringing EMR to life in the retail media space. So we're using MMM data, we're using panel data, retailer inputs, ideally we're getting clean rooms, We're using their margin data to kind of stitch all of this together to try to get to that single metric that we think is the one to use versus the ROAS or the high ROAS that the retailers are providing on their own.